Fear, Fame, and Responsibility by Erik. A young boy with cute baby cheeks and bright blonde hair, straight hair, sat in a dark room. The pitch-dark world surrounded him. Shadows acted like a blanket covering his small, thin body. He squinted his eyes in an attempt to see his hand in front of his face, but he could not. Blindness halted every one of his abilities, including thinking about where he was and why he could not see. The young boy could not control his own metacognition, but who would if he could not? A faint dim twilight surrounded him like a fog. His eyes were closed shut, but he could sense the light. Shapes began to fall from the heavens. Fear ran through his blood as goosebumps covered his arms and neck. Why was everything coming down? The world was ending, and the sky was dropping on top of him. Boulders of imaginable size were landing near him. Bam! Boom! The floor underneath his tiny feet vibrated. Helplessness came over him, and the rock shattered his mind. Erik jumped up out of bed, drenched in sweat. Oh, thank God, it was just a nightmare. Erik was watching the people dressed in gowns and tuxes strolling across the maroon carpet. The steel police barriers stood in front of him, while the glorious baseball players and their glamorous states walked into the Hall of Fame. An exceptionally beautiful young woman passed by the massive crowd of fans and baseball enthusiasts, while they yelled for a response or an autograph from the players. She looked up at the people and saw the little boy's turquoise blue eyes as he hung over the railing of the barrier, waving his pizza plate. Erik had no idea of what was going to come of his simple, polite request for an autograph. The woman rushed over to the limo next to the next limo that pulled up next to the red carpet. She assisted an old man out of the vehicle and up over the curb. He quickly lit a cigar and puffed as she spoke with him quietly as Erik watched them from across the way. The elderly gentleman shook the hand of another balding man and uttered a few words of greeting. As they parted from each other, the older of the two gentlemen was confronted by the young woman. She placed her arm around him gently as she wore a pleading look on her face. Both of their lips were moving, but the distance was too great for Erik's ears to hear. Just then, the man nodded his head in agreement, and the woman turned to face Erik. She motioned her finger and beckoned him. Everything started to rush around him as the lights above shined into his face. Hands reached over the barrier, slipped under his arms, and grabbed a hold of him as his feet suddenly were off the ground. Light red cheeks, heart racing, he held on tightly, not letting go of the smooth silk fabric of the woman's skirt. Finally, they had both crossed the ocean of red carpet and landed in front of the man puffing away at a cigar. Excitement rushed through Erik as he looked up into the brown eyes of the man. The old man said, "How old are you, young man?" Erik responded, 9 years old. "Can I please have your autograph?" "What will you do for my signature? I can't just give it away." Erik did not know what to do now that the man wanted something from him. Before he could think too long about the situation, the man said, "Can you do a cartwheel for me?" With a smile extending ear to ear, Erik said in excitement, "Yes!" Then someone yelled Erik's name in the crowd. He turned around and stared into the camera that his father had pointed towards him. One of the other autograph hunters shouted, "Have him sign my ball!" The young woman held on to the pizza plate and told Erik he could perform now in front of the old gentleman and the crowd of fans. Erik lifted his arms high into the air and flung them to the ground. His legs traveled above his head and then back onto the sidewalk. The aged man only caught the ending of the magnificent act of acrobatics on the red carpet. Everyone behind the steel obstructions were clapping and cheering. The face of the old man bore the expression of happiness and pleasure as he was surprised that the young boy could cartwheel across the red carpet. He said, "Nice job, kid. What's your name?" The boy said, "Erik." The man looked at the pizza plate with a puzzled look, shrugged his shoulders, then flipped it over and signed Warren Spahn at the bottom. In the 6th grade, one of Erik's best friends was a diabetic. He had watched Brady struggle with his blood sugar levels throughout the years while they were in elementary school. Before they were dismissed to go home for the day, they would stand in the classroom, lined up in rows. Miss C, their homeroom teacher, had gone out into the hallway to direct the other children to the buses. Most of the other boys and girls were in the hall talking about what they were going to do that weekend. Erik and Patrick were talking when suddenly Brady swayed back and forth. His eyes stared blankly at his two friends. He fell on one of the desks and then onto the floor. What was happening? Why would Brady joke around? Brady needed Erik's help. Erik looked around the room, searching for a teacher. No adult was near the classroom door or in the neighboring room. He yelled to Patrick to go get help from Mrs. C or any other teacher. Patrick ran out of the door, yelling down the hallway. Erik stood over Brady, then knelt next to his head. He was still conscious and breathing, but something seemed to be definitely wrong. Brady mumbled something inaudible that sounded like, "I am fine." Erik said, "Brady, stay awake, stay awake. The nurse or someone will be here soon." Finally, after what seemed to be an eternity, Miss C came running into the room and yelled in a frantic yet jokingly manner, "Brady, why did you have to do this to me on a Friday?" Another teacher, Miss Marsh, came into the panic-filled room and used the phone to call down to the nurse. Brady's blood sugar is low, and he is on the floor. Luckily, a Juicy Juice box lay on the table next to the teacher's desk, which Miss C squirted into Brady's limp mouth. He swallowed it and then began to sip it slowly through the straw. The nurse shuffled in through the doorway and gave Brady a few glucose tablets for him to chew. After about 5 minutes, the teachers told us that Brady should be fine and that Patrick and Erik should go home. Erik did not want to leave his friend behind, but he knew he would be taken care of. Erik told Brady to get better and that he would see him on Monday. As a child, about 2 or 3 years old, Erik could only fall asleep when one of his parents read him a bedtime story. His most cherished and beloved book, Max the Little Cement Mixer, gave him comfort and eased his mind of all the worries of the day. His mom said, Erik, is it getting late? Erik, it is getting late, and you need your sleep." With a sad look, Erik said, "Please read about Max." The Little Cement Mixer faced several adversities because he was too small to carry enough cement for large-scale projects. Erik stayed awake until the last line of the story and dreamed knowing that he was not alone in the world. From that day on, little Max never felt bad that he couldn't work on big projects. He knew that no matter how small his jobs were, if he did them really well, he could make the world a lovelier place in which to live.